All right. I want to talk today about the intellectual faculties of a human. And I know this is going to get into sort of a psychology lesson here, but it's important to understand, and we touched on this a little bit during the desires video, but just briefly, and that was an overview. So I want to get into detail because you have to know this, right? I mean, if you don't know this, you can't affect any positive change in your life. And the better you understand yourself and your own personal process, the better you will be able to achieve positive results in anything. It doesn't have to be Judaism, it could be anything. But before we do that, I want to thank today's fake sponsor. Today's sponsor is Nina Elman Interiors. Ladies, do you feel like you're not spending enough money? Men, do you feel like your wives are just being way too frugal with their credit cards? Well, worry no more. Give Nina Elman Interiors a call, and they'll spend all the money you have and don't have at popular stores like Home Goods, West Elm, and Restoration Hardware. They'll change up your house even though you don't need it. Give Nina Elman Interiors a call and ask for Nina. All right. Oh, also, check it out. Brand new tiles. If you don't know Punch Out, then I don't want to be your friend. All right, let's talk about the intellectual faculties. So we know that the animal soul and the godly soul are each broken down into 10 faculties. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, i.e. chokhmah, bina, and dat, those are the 3 intellectual faculties of your soul. Guess what? Chet, bet, daled, chabad. Chokhmah, bina, dat. That's what that movement is based on. All right, what are they? Chokhmah, bina, and dat are all part of your intellectual faculties. So if you think about your brain and your thought process, it's very difficult to think about breaking it down into 3 separate attributes because you just think, well, I have a brain and it thinks, right? But let me tell you how it really works. So whenever you think a thought, and I'm not going to talk about where that thought originates from or whatever else right now, but whenever you think a thought, that first lightning strike of, I have a thought, that's called chokhmah. Meaning there's so much potential. Think about a seed of a tree. That whole tree is going to blossom once you water it and do a bunch of stuff to it and it hits some sunlight and it'll grow flowers. I think trees grow flowers. I have no idea. But all that is packed into the initial seed. That's what chokhmah is. It's that first flash of a thought that has all the potential, but hasn't actually broken out into anything yet. So then comes bina. Bina is understanding. Now, when I say understanding, I mean like a full-on understanding. Like you extrapolated the crap out of this idea, and now you could literally write a dissertation on it. That's the level of understanding that you have. So understanding is really like a full, examining of a concept. What comes after that? Knowledge, which is dat. To know something means you no longer have to think about it. You don't have to read the instruction manual, you just know it, right? If I say, hey, I know how to shoot a basketball, I don't have to think, okay, put the ball in my hand, put my elbow up, and release up here. I don't have to do that. I just do it. It's muscle memory at that point. So, but it has to start somewhere, right? It has to start with chokhmah. And then you have to extrapolate it to the point where something becomes muscle memory. Now, dat, which is knowledge, is a level where something becomes a part of you. There's a connection, there's a bonding. In the Torah, it says that Adam knew Eve, right? What does that mean? He knew who she was because she was the only other person alive? Maybe. But what it really means is that they had relations. They were bonded, right? The puzzle pieces fit together because knowledge implies a connection. And so what is that connection as it relates to our thought process? That connection is when the thought becomes part of us. And now, if you think something and you internalize it and it becomes part of you, you don't have to think about it anymore. You just know it. It's just the truth for you. And by the way, the next 7 faculties, which are your emotive faculties, those attributes within you, all your emotions and everything else, now in a domino effect, they get affected and changed by what you know, right? The more you know, the more you can understand, right? And the more your feelings change. So we touched on this a little bit in the desires video, but this is much more detail. If you are a 5-year-old and your parent says you have to get a vaccine or a shot, I know vaccines are political, whatever, but you got to get vaccines. And all you know as a 5-year-old is that you go to the doctor and they stick a needle in your arm and you're all upset about it, right? You're like, I don't like this thing. This is terrible. But you don't know yet that that's actually good for you because you're not going to get polio and end up in a wheelchair, right? As an adult, when you know the purpose of it, and again, leave out all this nonsense about vaccines giving you autism or whatever. I'm not getting into that. But you understand that there's a benefit to you getting that. So even though it might hurt a little bit, you know from all of your understanding that it'll save you in the future. You're not really bothered by that little prickle anymore. It changes how you feel about it. So it's crucial that you use your wisdom, understanding, and knowledge to your advantage, because the more you understand and the more you know without having to think about it, the more your desires change and the more you can, I don't want to say tolerate, but the more pain you can tolerate without it bothering you because it's not pain anymore. Let's talk about how this applies to Judaism. Let's say you're told to keep kosher. You're like, well, that's way too hard. Why? Because now I have to only shop at certain markets. I have to, only eat at certain restaurants. When I travel, I can't just eat whatever I want. And sounds like kind of a pain in the ass, right? Except if you know because you had some semblance of a lightning strike that God doesn't want you to eat non-kosher, right? And now you're like, well, who is this God anyway, right? What do I owe him? Oh, well, he creates the world every single second. And if he stopped for 1 second, all of it would disappear, including myself. Okay, well, he must be this powerful, great God. And let me look at this world and see how the human body works and realize that there's no way that could be a coincidence that some explosion made that happen. And you get all that out of the way as a baseline foundation. And then you start thinking, okay, well, if there is a God, there's clearly a reason for all of this. Maybe I should do something about it, right? Maybe it's better for me. Maybe I'm scared of this big, powerful God. Or maybe I really love this God because of everything he's done for me in my existence. So then you say, okay, well, he wants me to eat kosher. Let me learn about kosher. Before you know it, you're like, wait a second. This can be good for me, right? And, oh, wait, this is good for the God who wants it, right? Or it's good for the world. Okay, well, maybe it's actually not that big of a deal anymore to only eat at certain restaurants or bring food with me when I travel, because guess what? I have already deducted that there are a whole bunch of reasons why it's actually better for me to have to carry food with me when I travel than to just eat anything, right? And now you know that. So when you travel, you don't have to go through this process every time. And now your emotions change as a result of it. And so the point of this entire video is to say that if you can understand your intellectual process and your intellectual faculties, the domino effect that'll happen to your emotional attributes will be, natural. You won't have to do anything about it. So you won't have to work on those attributes and say, okay, well, I get angry. How do I fix my anger? Well, just pretend to be happy. Nope. Think about what causes your anger. Think about whether it's justified and whether there's something else you can do. instead of that, in order to not be angry anymore, right? And use your intellectual faculties. Now, according to Dr. Mark, a world-renowned penile specialist, erectioniq.com, you can believe this because this is modern psychology. And if you go see a psychologist today, they'll tell you that this is the leading thought process right now behind affecting positive change and getting rid of the negative. So think about that. Ask me any questions, post in the comments. Let me know if you want to better understand this. This is obviously a concept that can go and go and go and go, but understanding this will allow you to change yourself for the better, and you might even want to do more mitzvahs because of it.